The summer I turned pretty didn't just end, it left us hanging with a storm of emotions, unanswered questions, and the promise of one last chapter. We thought season 3 wrapped things up, but no, Jenny Han had one more card up her sleeve, a movie. And not just any movie, the official final piece of Belly's story. The announcement of the Summer I Turned Pretty movie hit like a shockwave. Right after season 3's finale in Paris, Prime Video confirmed that Belly's journey wasn't over. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. Think about it, after all the heartbreak, the reunions, the betrayals, and the messy love triangle. Did you really believe the story would just end with Conrad showing up at Belly's apartment? That scene was emotional, yes, but it was also incomplete. Conrad and Belly finally found their way back to each other. But the real challenge isn't falling back in love, it's staying there. And that's exactly why this movie exists. Jenny Han made it clear, 3 seasons weren't enough to finish Belly's journey the right way. She wanted the movie format to handle the one milestone that's been hanging over Belly and Conrad from the very beginning, their wedding. Yes, you heard that right. This movie is building toward marriage. And with marriage comes all the drama you'd expect when your fiancé also happens to be your ex's brother. The books gave us a rushed version of this ending. But now, Jenny Han has the chance to stretch it out, dig into the messy emotions, and show us what happily ever after really costs. But here's where it gets complicated. The season 3 finale left Belly in Paris, living a bold, independent life. She was glowing, she was thriving, and she was finally free of the weight of her past. Then Conrad showed up at her door and pulled her right back into the reality she had been running from. That tension between who Belly thought she had become and who she really is deep down is going to be at the heart of this film. Because when you're planning forever with someone like Conrad, there's no hiding. Every fear, every insecurity, every past mistake, it all comes to the surface. And let's not forget Jeremiah. The series closed with him seemingly moving on, building a new life for himself, even finding new love. But can we really believe Jeremiah is done with Belly? After years of holding onto her, after giving her everything only to watch her choose his brother, is it realistic to think he's suddenly healed? I doubt it. In fact, I think Jeremiah's role in the movie is going to be bigger than people expect. Jenny Han is too smart to just push him aside. He might not win Belly's heart this time, but he could easily be the shadow over her future, with Conrad the reminder of choices that will never stop haunting her. That's the brilliance of this setup. The show gave us romance, heartbreak, and reunions. The movie? It's going to give us consequences. We're talking family drama, unresolved guilt, the pain of Jeremiah watching Belly marry his brother, and Belly herself questioning if love alone is strong enough to survive the weight of everything that came before. And if you think this is going to be a straightforward walk down the aisle, you're in for a surprise. Jenny Han has already said this final chapter won't be rushed, which means we're getting letters, long-distance struggles, family confrontations, and probably more than one moment that will make fans question if Belly and Conrad can actually make it. So buckle up, because the movie isn't just about a wedding, it's about whether this love story can survive in the real world. And something tells me the answers aren't going to be as sweet as the summers at Cousins Beach. Now, let's talk about the big question that's been floating in every fan's mind since the movie was announced. What exactly are we going to see on screen? Because if you think it's just a simple time jump to Belly and Conrad's wedding, think again. Jenny Han already confirmed that this film isn't just about tying the knot. It's about everything leading up to it, and trust me, those steps are going to be messy. We're going to see the long-distance phase, the letters Belly and Conrad write to each other, the emotional weight of their reunion with family, and the awkward, unavoidable encounters with Jeremiah. In other words, all the things that the rushed book ending skipped over. The movie is about to dive headfirst into. Let's start with the letters. In the book, Belly finds a letter from Susanna, Conrad, and Jeremiah's mother that basically gives her blessing to the relationship. It's touching, but in the show, we haven't actually seen Belly read that letter yet. That's no small detail. This isn't just a random note, it's a message from Susanna herself, the woman who always wanted Belly to end up with one of her sons. Imagine the emotional weight of Belly sitting down to read Susanna's words, knowing full well the path she chose, knowing Susanna's dream came true, but also feeling the guilt of how messy the journey was to get here. That scene alone could set the tone for the whole movie, reminding us that this love story has always been bigger than just Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah. It's a legacy, one that Susanna quietly shaped even after her death. Then there's the family issue. Think about it. How do you explain to your family and friends that you're marrying the brother of your ex? That's not something you just sweep under the rug. The show already teased this dynamic by isolating Belly and Conrad at the end of season 3, almost like Jenny Han was preparing us for the storm that's about to hit. When they come back to the US as a couple, there's no hiding anymore. Laurel, Belly's mom, will have opinions. Stephen, Belly's brother, will have opinions. And Jeremiah? He may say he's moved on, but the looks, the silences, and the unspoken tension will say otherwise. This movie is going to explore the emotional landmines of being in love with someone when your shared history with their family is already shattered. And here's where it gets even more interesting: Jeremiah himself. In the finale, he seemed like he was finally stepping into a new chapter, building his career as a chef and finding a new love interest. But can someone really move on from a relationship that intense, that heartbreaking, that public? Belly wasn't just his girlfriend. She was his future, his anchor, and for years, he believed she was the one. The movie will likely show Jeremiah in a new relationship, but let's be real, this is Jenny Han. Nothing is ever that simple. His storyline will probably be used to prove that he's over Belly, but emotionally, you know he's not. And even if he does want to move on, watching Belly and Conrad build a life together is going to reopen wounds he thought had healed. That's not jealousy, it's trauma. And it's exactly the kind of emotional fuel that makes this movie more than just a romance. But let's not forget Belly herself. She has always been torn between who she wants to be and who people expect her to be. Paris gave her freedom, independence, a new identity. With Conrad back in the picture, she's reminded of the messy, painful, complicated version of herself that she can't outrun. So the movie isn't just about Belly choosing Conrad. It's about Belly learning whether she can carry that choice without losing herself again. Because marriage isn't just love, it's responsibility, commitment, and a promise to stay even when the feelings get complicated. And if we've learned anything from Belly's story, it's that feelings always get complicated. Now, here's the kicker: Jenny Han deliberately chose to make this a movie instead of a fourth season. Why? Because she wanted focus. In her words, another season would just be more conflict, more problems that people don't really want to see. Fans were desperate to watch Belly and Conrad finally get together, but the truth is, getting together is only half the battle. Staying together is where the real story lies. And that's the beauty of this movie: it doesn't have to stretch over 10 episodes of side plots and filler. It can zero in on the heart of the story, Belly and Conrad's future, Jeremiah's place in it, and the emotional cost of turning summer love into something permanent. So if you're expecting a lighthearted wedding movie, think again. This isn't about flowers, dresses, and pretty vows. It's about facing ghosts, making peace with the past, and deciding whether love is strong enough to survive the reality that comes after all the fairy tale summers are gone. And honestly, that's what makes it so exciting, because we don't know if Belly's happily ever after will actually be happy, or if it will break her in ways she never expected. Here's the part that no one wants to talk about, but everyone's secretly thinking: can Conrad and Belly actually survive this? Because let's be honest, their history isn't exactly the foundation of a stable relationship. We've watched them dance around each other for 3 whole seasons, falling in, falling out, hurting Jeremiah in the process, and leaving a trail of heartbreak behind them. Now, Jenny Han wants us to believe that the movie will take them from a messy reunion in Paris to a full-blown marriage. That's a massive leap. And while fans are rooting for Conrad and Belly's happily ever after, we also can't ignore the cracks that have always existed between them. Those cracks don't just disappear with one romantic declaration in front of an apartment door. Think about Conrad for a second. He's always been the brooding, guarded type, carrying the weight of Susanna's death, his family's fractured relationships, and his own inability to open up. Belly has spent years trying to break through those walls. Yes, by the end of season 3 he finally admitted his love, but does that mean he's magically fixed? No, that kind of emotional baggage doesn't vanish, it lingers. And marriage, of all things, has a way of magnifying those flaws. We've seen Conrad push people away when things get too hard. What happens when life with Belly stops being dreamy and romantic and turns into bills, responsibilities, and hard choices about the future? That's the test this movie is going to throw at him. And Belly, she isn't exactly innocent either. For 3 seasons, she bounced back and forth between Conrad and Jeremiah, never fully certain of what she wanted. Sure, Paris gave her time to discover herself, but even then, she wasn't free of her past. Conrad showing up at her door shattered that illusion of independence. So while the movie might show her stronger and more mature, the question still remains: has Belly really grown enough to handle the permanence of marriage? Because marriage means no more waffling, no more indecision. It means committing to one person for the rest of your life. That's not a choice you can undo. And Belly has never proven herself to be great at permanent choices. And here's the brutal truth: Jeremiah will always be in the picture. No matter how much the movie tries to show him moving on, his history with Belly doesn't just disappear. This isn't a normal love triangle where one guy quietly fades into the background. Once the girl makes her choice, This is a triangle within a family. Jeremiah is Conrad's brother. Holidays, birthdays, family gatherings, they'll all be there together. Even if Jeremiah truly finds love elsewhere, he'll never fully escape the reminder that Belly chose Conrad over him. And Belly, no matter how hard she tries, will always carry the guilt of knowing she broke Jeremiah's heart. Those unspoken tensions are the kind of thing that eats away at relationships slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up realizing you're not as happy as you thought you were. And that's why Jenny Han's choice to make this final story a movie is so genius. Because instead of dragging it out into a season full of distractions, she gets to cut straight into the emotional core of this story. We're going to see Conrad and Belly face the ugly truth of what it means to be together after everything they've been through. We're going to see Jeremiah's wounds resurface not as a cheap love triangle plot, but as the realistic consequences of the choices that were made. And we're going to see Belly struggle with her identity, caught between the carefree Paris version of herself and the messy reality of being Conrad's fiance a cutie. Now, let's speculate for a second. Imagine the wedding planning process. Every decision, every event becomes a battlefield of emotions. Belly's family might question if she's making the right choice. Jeremiah might put on a brave face, but his pain will slip through the cracks. Conrad, already known for shutting down under pressure, could start spiraling again. And Belly, stuck in the middle, will have to decide if her love for Conrad is strong enough to hold against all the chaos. This isn't about flowers or dresses, it's about survival. And the survival of a relationship that's already been tested beyond its limits. But here's the twist, Jenny Han isn't afraid of bittersweet endings. Look at how she wrapped season 3. Yes, we got the reunion we wanted. But it wasn't clean or perfect, it was messy, awkward, and filled with tension. That tells me the movie won't just give us a perfect wedding where everyone's smiling and hugging. It's going to give us something raw, something that feels real. Maybe Conrad and Belly do walk down the aisle, but maybe the happiness isn't as simple as we expect. Or maybe the movie will shock us all and show that sometimes love isn't enough. Either way, Jenny Han has built her reputation on stories that sting just as much as they satisfy. So if you're expecting a fairy tale ending, brace yourself. At the end of the day, this movie isn't just about who Belly ends up with, it's about whether the love she chose can actually withstand reality. And that's the story fans deserve to see. Because for years we've been asking the same question, was Conrad really the right choice? Or was he just the fantasy Belly couldn't let go of? The movie might finally give us that answer. But don't be surprised if the answer comes with heartbreak. One thing we can't ignore is how Jenny Han uses timing to her advantage. She already said the actors need to feel closer to true adulthood for this movie. And that tells us everything about the kind of story she wants to tell. Belly isn't a teenager anymore. Conrad isn't just the quiet, mysterious boy at the beach. Jeremiah isn't the fun, easygoing brother who never took life seriously. They've all grown, and with that growth comes heavier choices. So instead of watching summer flings and beach bonfires, we're going to watch these characters step into the most defining stage of their lives. And that shift alone is going to make the movie feel more intense, more grounded, and more emotional than anything we saw in the show. Think about it, up until now, The Summer I Turned Pretty has always been about youth, about the magic of Cousins Beach, about falling in love for the first time. But the movie? This is where all that magic gets tested by reality. Marriage, careers, distance, and family obligations don't leave room for teenage daydreams. They demand maturity, compromise, and sacrifice. And let's be real, Belly has never had to make sacrifices on this scale before. Sure, she sacrificed Jeremiah's heart when she chose Conrad. She sacrificed her Paris freedom when she opened the door and let Conrad back into her life. But marriage is a whole different ballgame. It's not about choosing in the moment, it's about choosing every day, no matter how messy, no matter how heavy it gets. And that's exactly what makes this story thrilling. Because we don't know if Belly can handle that. She's always been caught between who she wants to be and what she feels in the moment. Paris showed us a version of Belly who thought she could escape her past. But Conrad's return shattered that illusion. Now she has to prove whether she can stand firm in her choices when the past, the present, and the future all collide. And trust me, they will collide. Because the movie isn't just about her and Conrad, it's about Jeremiah too. Let's break this down. Jenny Han has already teased that Jeremiah will be in a new relationship, and sure, on paper, that's supposed to show that he's over Belly, but you and I both know that's not how it works. For years of loving someone doesn't just vanish because you've found a new partner. Jeremiah might look happy, he might act like he's moved on, but deep down, that wound never really healed. And the wedding? That's salt in the wound. Watching your brother marry the girl you loved isn't just painful, it's humiliating. And no matter how strong Jeremiah tries to be, that tension will hang in the air. And Belly knows it. That's what makes this so complicated. Belly isn't cruel. She isn't oblivious. She knows the history, she knows the pain. And deep down she knows that even if Jeremiah never says a word, her marriage to Conrad is going to affect him forever. And that guilt doesn't go away. It lingers like a ghost, reminding her of the cost of her choice. So while the movie is technically a romance, don't be surprised if guilt becomes one of its biggest themes. Because guilt, more than love, has always driven Belly's decisions. Then there's Conrad. We all know he loves Belly, but Conrad isn't exactly built for drama-free relationships. He's intense, he's guarded, and when things get hard, he tends to shut down. That might have worked when they were teenagers, when Belly would chase after him and beg for answers. But in marriage, that silence becomes dangerous. It breeds resentment. It makes Belly question if she's truly chosen someone who can show up for her every single day. That's why I think the movie is going to show cracks in their relationship, not because they don't love each other, but because love alone has never been enough for them. And here's where the suspense really comes in. Jenny Han has been very careful about saying the movie is the final chapter. That phrase matters. It means this isn't just a continuation, it's closure. And closure doesn't always mean happiness. Closure means resolution. So whether Belly and Conrad actually make it down the aisle, whether Jeremiah finds peace, whether Belly can forgive herself, that's what the movie will answer. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if the ending isn't the perfect happily ever after fans are expecting. Because Jenny Han has never been afraid of bittersweet endings. Look back at Season 3's finale. It gave us Belly and Conrad together, yes, but it also gave us isolation. It separated them from their families, from Jeremiah, from the life they once knew. That was intentional. It was Jenny Han saying, you can have your happy ending, but it won't come without a price. And now, in this movie, we're about to see that price in full. The family tension, the guilt, the unresolved pain, all of it colliding in the lead up to Belly and Conrad's wedding. And the scariest part? Even if the wedding happens, that doesn't mean the story ends with smiles and sunshine. It could end with heartbreak disguised as closure. So as much as fans want to see the dress, the vows, the kiss at the altar, the real story isn't about the wedding, it's about whether these characters can survive the storm that comes before it. And something tells me that storm is going to be bigger than anything we've seen in the show so far. Now here's the truth that no one wants to admit: the ending of the Summer I Turned Pretty movie will divide fans no matter what happens. If Belly and Conrad get their wedding and ride off into forever, there will be people who say it feels forced, too perfect, too unrealistic after everything they've been through. But if Jenny Han delivers a bittersweet ending, where Belly realizes maybe love isn't enough, or where Conrad struggles to give her the life she deserves, fans who have been rooting for them since Season 1 will feel betrayed. And if Jeremiah somehow steps back into the picture, even just as a reminder of what could have been, that's going to reopen wounds for everyone watching. That's the kind of finale we're heading into, one that guarantees heartbreak for someone, maybe even for all of us. And that's exactly why this movie is so important. It's not about giving everyone what they want, it's about giving the story the ending it needs. Jenny Han has always written with honesty. She doesn't shy away from pain, she doesn't pretend choices don't have consequences, and she doesn't let her characters escape the weight of their actions. Belly chose Conrad. That choice came with joy, but it also came with guilt, with broken bonds, with a shadow of doubt that will never fully disappear. This movie is going to force her to live with that choice. Not just the dreamy, romantic version of Conrad, but the real Conrad, the one who struggles, the one who hides, the one who hurts. And that's why the stakes feel so much higher than ever before. Let's not forget the timing either. Jenny Han said she wants the actors closer to adulthood. And that's because this story is no longer about teenage romance. It's about stepping into the realities of adulthood. Conrad could be a doctor by the time we see him again. Belly won't be that college girl torn between summers anymore. She'll be a woman on the edge of making the biggest commitment of her life. Jeremiah might have a new love, but that doesn't erase his past with Belly. Time has moved forward. But the emotions? They've stayed frozen, waiting to explode the moment these characters are forced back into each other's lives. And let's be honest, there's still one piece missing. Susanna's letter. We know it's coming. We know it will play a role. And that letter could be the thing that either cements Belly's choice or completely shatters her confidence. Because Susanna wanted Belly to be happy. But happiness isn't simple when it's tangled in this much history. Belly reading those words will feel like Susanna reaching from beyond the grave, reminding her that love is beautiful but also fragile. And that fragility might be the most important theme of the entire movie. So here's where we stand. The movie will give us the wedding, yes, but it will also give us all the pain that comes with it. The tension between brothers, the guilt that Belly can't shake, the pressure of living up to love when reality sets in, And that's what makes it so thrilling. We don't know how it will end. Jenny Han promised this is the final chapter, and that means no more do-overs. No more second chances. Whatever happens here is permanent. If Belly and Conrad make it, they'll make it for good. If they fall apart, it will be final. That's the kind of suspense no summer romance has ever carried before, and maybe that's the point. Maybe Jenny Han wants us to understand that love stories aren't about perfection, they're about survival. They're about whether two people can fight through the storms, forgive the past, and still choose each other in the end. That's the test Conrad and Belly are walking into. And it's one that could either end in the fairy tale fans have been waiting for, or the heartbreak we never saw coming. So as we wait for this movie, ask yourself this: do you really want the perfect happy ending, or do you want the honest one? Because honesty is messy. Honesty hurts. But honesty is also what makes The Summer I Turned Pretty unforgettable. And whether you love the ending or hate it, one thing's for sure, we're not going to forget it.